Talking about WrestleMania 7 with Mr. Mooney. How are you doing today?
Oh, I can't wait to talk about all those superstars and stripes today. It's
I
all about
love the theme.
patriotism back then and causing a lot of trouble and pissing a lot of people off. Yeah, it was
That's
something.
yeah. The WWF loves to do that, and E as well. But I love the theme of this. Honestly,
Mhm.
some WrestleManias just have like a big, hey, we're a big event. This one was, man, I really want to get an American flag right now.
Yeah, absolutely. And it was a time in our country we didn't at this point where patriotism was top shelf there. I mean, everybody was into being part of our country and standing up, and it brought a lot of people together. It's just that the timing of it, as far as this event in particular, really got dicey. It was, you talk about two sides of a conflict here. That's pretty much what it was. People were either, well, I guess I'm sure there were a few that were just, I don't know, I'm not quite sure, but people had really strong opinions about us going forward with this. And it was kind of at the, that train was heading downhill, and you're not going to stop that train. So they had to keep moving forward, and they made several adjustments along the way. But there were people really in some camps that were like, just stop it. Don't move forward with it. And as we know, with the WWF, WWE, and Vince McMahon, that's not going to happen. He's going to make something work no matter what. As I have said before in those meetings, he would say it every time: nothing can go wrong. And what he meant by that was, no matter what happens, you make it work. And some people can argue they didn't make it work, and others will say, yeah, they did. They pulled it off.
Now, that's kind of a big question I have, because we've talked about Sergeant Slaughter and his Rocky sympathizer character multiple times. But this time around, it's really about, so why is it okay for movies to use, say, 9/11 or big, huge, monumental moments in American history to sell movies or T-shirts? But for wrestling, when they use something like this with Sergeant Slaughter and Hulk Hogan in America, why is this looked at as this? Oh, you can't do this.
Well, I think that people, like you say, with movies or anything else, it's fiction. But the thing is, with professional wrestling, you always it created that illusion that maybe there was some part of reality to it as well. And even, the vast majority of the audience knew it was fiction in that sense. But, they always tried to bring in what was actually happening in the world. They capitalized on it. And so I think that a lot of people felt that they just took advantage of a situation when they should have been more sensitive to actually what was going on. And kind of in that rule in professional wrestling is that there's no bad publicity, in a sense, and the more heat you get, the better it is. Flowers and puppies and kitties doesn't sell like blood and guts, pure evil hate, aggression. That sells. And so this was one of those situations where you had these characters that, I mean, we discussed the heat Sergeant Slaughter generated, and the other minions involved. It was napalm. It was the next level as far as heat, death threats, and that became reality for people involved in this storyline. So it really is that kind of that blur. You go to the movies, this is make believe. Wrestling always tried to create that there's something to it, and when you do that, and the people that certainly know it's a work, as we say, get pissed because they're like, well, we know it's a work, and look what they're doing. They're taking advantage of the situation. But it was, right up, and it just kept getting worse because literally when this event took place, we've got troops on the ground, and it was, you're talking life and death in that situation.
Can you take me through the security systems of WWE HQ in the studio you worked in? Because we had January of Royal Rumble 91, Slaughter wins the championship. The war has started, and we lead up to WrestleMania, we've heard stories of Vince McMahon calling Sergeant Slaughter saying, hey, there's death threats against my family and your family. We're going to send security over. We're going to take care of you. Sarge's walking around with bulletproof vests on as he's traveling around the country. What was it like for you personally in this situation, building into WrestleMania, knowing that security might be an issue? Because it was a big issue at the Super Bowl.
Yeah. Well, we always had security at our facilities. And back then, if people know what the real setup was, we had the tower, which is where it was basically the WWE headquarters. That's where everything was. And, the marketing and, all the corporate stuff. And then we had 120 Hamilton. And Hamilton was not far. It was a stone's throw, really, 5 minutes away. But you had to cross over the freeway there, I-95.
Oh.
And we were tucked back into this area that was, warehouses in a very industrial area of Stamford, Connecticut. And, when I was there, we didn't have the big gates or anything like that.
Ooh.
But I know that they did step up security. We had, security teams there. Was I concerned when I got in my car and went to my condo in Norwalk? No, I really didn't fear for that. But there was a stepped up sense of, man, they're taking this stuff very seriously. Sergeant Slaughter has talked about when he went home after, being on the road and showing up at his house after Vince had warned him that, that things are getting really serious. And he goes to his house in Connecticut, and this long road that goes up this hill where his house was, and there's vans out in front of the house. Well, Vince had secured a security team. These guys in suits were talking in their ear, with the earpieces, and and they were at his house 24/7, and they wanted to go as far as accompanying his wife and family whenever they went to the store and all these, everything else, because they really did have to protect Sarge. Sarge had somebody with him all the time. And, especially because he was out there traveling, but Sarge's wife said, no, that we're not doing that. I'm not going to do that. But they did watch the house, and they took it very, very seriously. And also, people knew who the guy behind the curtain was. So Vince McMahon was getting a lot of threats as well. So it was a really weird time. When you live in that world, you get used to that. We had security around. The famous shot of me and Bobby in front of the Manhattan Center with Bobby dressed in drag there. If you see that picture, there's a guy in the middle of us there. And he's that's a security guy. And he you get to know these guys. And I remember seeing that, and I remember him because he was around all the time. He took care of us. And it would, it might be just one guy, but whenever we did shoots like that, we had security around. But at that point, when you're, leading into WrestleMania 7 and everything that was going on there, it was definitely stepped up. You saw more vans following, us and when we did things, more guys at the events, because they didn't want to take any chances. But you always had to have somebody around because there were people that weren't balanced, and you never knew what they might do, and incidents like that happen. But this was where somebody actually take a shot at Sarge or something like that. So it was a really tense time for the company.
Now, kind of like a two-part question. Is that worth all of that security for Vince and his family and Sergeant Slaughter for a storyline, for a television show, for professional wrestling? Or also the question would be, do you think Vince is like opening up a curtain in his house and seeing security? He's like, can you believe it? They hate us so much. They want to kill us. Like, this is amazing.
No, I don't think that's the way Vince looked at it, because it was, becomes a big inconvenience in your life. Anybody that's ever had to deal with that, maybe at first you feel really important because you've got people following you around, and the moon pie is on the move, whatever it is. But after a while, it's like, oh God, these guys are just here, So I don't think that Vince really looked at it that way. But overall, I mean, I think the level of heat, he knew that that was going to translate into, more money for the company and more interest in what we were doing.
True.
So it's the event. You're thinking about when this was in the company's history, and business wasn't great, and they, as we know, originally they wanted to sell out the LA Coliseum. Well,
Yeah.
the LA Coliseum, what's it hold, 110,000 something at the time, and it's an awful venue for what we wanted to do. If you've ever been in there, Steve, it is a Coliseum.
I've only walked by it. I've never actually been inside. It
is
looks crazy
gigantic.
from the outside.
It is gigantic. I don't know what the original intent for the design of that thing, but it really wasn't designed for any sport. I mean, unless maybe it was gladiators.
That's what it looks like.
Because you're just so far away, and it's gigantic. And even back then, I thought when they first announced that that's what they wanted to do, I was like, how are you going to fill this? And it was, we weren't really into that age of where we had the big, they had people had jumbotrons, but it wasn't anything like what they evolved into, where you had all of the, the monitors everywhere. So the guys would have looked like this big, when you see them from where even the good seats were going to be far away. And this was also before they were doing the giant stages that we see. Yeah. It was way before that. And so what are you going to have imagine this, like your center stage is going to be a ring in this gigantic Coliseum, and not very well built for something like that. So there's documentation that people say, that the ticket sales were just awful. And I think, within the first 2 weeks, they'd only sold, I think they said 15, 16,000, and people say it was closer to 10. So, there was mass panic of, my God, Basil DeVito, who I'm sure some people have heard of him, especially we've talked about him on podcasts.
Oh, yeah.
Was kind of the marketing guy behind all this and mapping out ticket sales. And so you can imagine after 2 weeks, he's like, oh my God, what are we going to do? So there was definitely something to when they switching the venue to say, it's a big security risk. And I think that they will, that'll go to their graves of saying that was the reason. But, I'm not going to say it wasn't part of the equation here, but also the idea that we're going to have an 110,000 seat stadium, and maybe we could put in 30,000. Can you imagine what that would have looked like in there? You're not going to be flying the blimp over that thing. Going, hey, well, WrestleMania 7. Massive crowd. A lot.
Push them all to the hard camera. Push them all to the hard camera so it looks full from this one camera angle.
Yeah, Bob Collins, I always talk about him as the promotion guy, that he used to, he'd move people around during the night when we did TV tapings as the kids fell asleep or had to go home, go to school. They'd be doing that. They'd have to, be moving people in mass. But anyway, it came down to that where they were going to have to. They just realized, this is not going to look good. So we've got to find an alternative, which they did with the arena in LA. So
yeah, it worked. It worked out for them. But
well, it did, and they had shown what we could do with those small arenas at the Boardwalk in New Jersey, in Atlantic City, and those things only had, I think it was 17,000, 18,000 people, and it's all perception on those cameras. And if it's a packed house, no matter if it's 12, 15,000. You can make it look like this exciting venue. And, that was going to be easy to do. They were going to be able to pack that thing to the rafters.
No, they dressed it very nicely. Like I said, when you turn on WrestleMania 7 and I watched it for the first time in so long, the first thing I see, it's like you see the American flags, you see the WrestleMania sign that has red, white, and blue in the logo. Mm-hmm. They've changed it up a little bit from the gold over the years, the yellow. So it's you can tell like they have a theme for this, even if they were going to fill up 100,000 people. I'm assuming these little banners had to be printed out. Once they realized by February they weren't going to go to the Coliseum, they're like, all right, well, we gotta order some shit now because we don't have a giant banner to fill 100,000. We got to fill 20,000. So you're right about that. They'll die to their graves. Was it security reasons? Was it poor ticket sales? Either way, finding out that the weather was 55 degrees that evening on WrestleMania. So imagine that you're in LA, 100,000 people. It's 55 degrees. In today's world, even when they go wrestle in Florida, they have a heated mat because they want to make sure the wrestlers are nice and toasty.
Oh, come on. It wasn't Green Day. Come on. It's 55 degrees. You of all people should know, like 55 degrees. Well, wear shorts. But you're right. People in Los Angeles,
55 is cold.
55 degrees. Oh my God. I'll have to wear a sweater. Yeah.
Hats and gloves, man. I went to Philly for WrestleMania 39 and it was freezing. Winter hats, coats, sweatshirts, gloves. We were dying up there in the press box because it was so cold. And then the WWE the next day was like, we're never coming back here again. So,
that's funny.
55 is pretty damn cold in Los Angeles.
Yeah. You're right.
But with WrestleMania, there's always celebrities. And this celebrity, oh my God, I love this group of celebrities. Like these guys clearly wanted to be involved. You have Alex Trebek, who has wonderful moments throughout the night.
Yeah.
You also have a few interesting pieces here. Marla Maples. Who was involved with Donald Trump at the time, eventually becomes his wife.
Mrs. Trump.
Yeah. And he's actually in the audience as well with Henry Winkler, Chuck Norris, Lou Ferrigno.
Chuck Norris.
What a combo of celebrities in the audience, huh?
Who do you think I was more excited about of all those people?
I'm going to guess Henry Winkler.
No, Chuck Norris. Come on. He was like such a badass. I couldn't wait to meet him. Yeah, Chuck Norris. Man. You know what, though? The surprised me is how small he was. Like a lot of times you meet these celebrities and, they're like 5'7", 5'5", and like, that's that big, tough, badass guy that I see on TV. A lot of people are like that. Tom Cruise isn't that tall. Jason Statham's not that. These guys that are known as these big, massive, tough guys, and you can see what they can do. They make them look like on TV, but that didn't matter. He was still Chuck Norris, and he was still a fucking badass. I'm sorry, but
so they all came backstage.
Well, they were around. So it wasn't like you got a chance to hang with them. The one I did get to hang with was Regis on occasions because he, so we should talk about Regis at some point, but he was a huge wrestling fan. And so Regis would come, and he lived in New York. They taped their show there, and he would come to the garden shows all the time. And he was really good friends with Freddie Blassie because, Freddie lived in Southern California for a lot of his career and was really well known there. And as I said, Regis was a huge fan of professional wrestling. And he used to have Freddie come on his show that he had there. He had a morning show there, I think it was, in San Diego. And so they became really very close friends. And Regis was around all the time, a huge fan. And he was really a good guy, too. He would just come and hang out. He just loved being around the boys. And also, look how many times he had guys on Regis and Kathy Lee. She hated it. She hated it when they would come on there. But Regis, he was in charge, and he loved bringing those guys on. And I think a lot of it, he loved to do it just because he knew it would tweak her. It would get her off. When Rick Rude came on, and he had the tights with her face on the front of his crotch, and he did that on purpose. I'm sure that he told him to, hey, this would be awesome, and it worked. I think she walked off the set.
She does. She goes up. There's like fake stairs, I think, on the set. And she like leaves and goes back over there.
But I digress. Anyway, getting back to the celebrities there, and it was, come on, we're in Los Angeles. It was easy pickings, and surprisingly, or maybe not, but a lot of celebrities love professional wrestling. They're same as rock stars too. Guys would come they all, it's funny because these guys are very successful in professions, and guys that were musicians wanted to be actors, and actors wanted to be musicians, and actors wanted to be professional wrestlers, and the same thing with these guys. So this was not a tough sell, to get. I think that they actually turned down people some to give them tickets and stuff because they wanted it, but it was quite the turnout. Yeah.
Alex Trebek is also here. I didn't want to forget him because, Jeopardy is one of the biggest things in the world at this point in time in 91. Again, you have Regis Philbin and Kathy Lee having their amazing morning show. But when I was like, Marla Maples, who the? And I had to go Google. That's why. That's why you're here, because you were involved with a scandal with Trump at the time, and we couldn't really prove if you were involved, if you weren't involved. But we're going to bring you in here for some, I don't know, some gotcha journalism maybe. But Regis is hilarious. When Mean Gene introduces all the celebrities, he's backstage with them. He introduces Regis, and the first thing he says, he's like, "I'm afraid of earthquake." I heard he tipped over a pizza cart and ate the whole thing. And Gene's like, "All right, Marla, let's go to Marla." Marla says she's going to be backstage doing interviews in the men's locker room, and she is going to tell it like she sees it. Gene starts laughing and says there's going to be a lot of cold showers tonight. What? And then we go to Alex Trebek, and Mean Gene's like, "My best friend here, Alex Trebek. We're very close friends." And Alex does not call Gene by his name. He mistakenly says a different name. And this is where I go, oh, this is going to be good. Like, this is going to be good stuff. But how often do celebrities come forth and be like, I want to do all this fun stuff? Or some are very, very closed off. Like, I want to do exactly what I'm supposed to be doing because I don't want to expose who I really am.
Yeah, some of them were, really into it, and others were just looking for an opportunity. That was what it was kind of cool to see happen, because, initially, I'm sure, years before that, if somebody would have gone to a celebrity and say, "Hey, the WWF wants you to come on," they're like, "What? Oh my God, I can't believe they'd ask me to do that." I'm like, "No." That to the point where, people are going, "Yeah, a lot of people are paying attention to this, and they're the cool kids." And so it got to the point where, they could pick and choose in a lot of ways to do that. And some of it was just cameo, just have them there so you see them, which is awesome. They're just sitting, watching and enjoying it. But there are other people that, that were high profile enough, and if they could get them to do some kind of shtick with them, absolutely. And that was what was great about Alex Trebek, is that, here he was, people really had never gotten a chance to see Alex Trebek in kind of that situation. You never really saw him going on talk shows. You didn't see people interviewing him very often. Mm-hmm. So to see him, out of that very stoic, very straight man delivery game show host guy, trying to loosen up him a little bit, but it was what was it funny? It was very difficult for him to do it. I think he wanted to, he just wasn't capable. It was just kind of like robotic in a sense, that I've known other people like that too. You want to have fun, you want to get in, and it's just too hard for you. So yeah, that
Regis had fun.
Yeah, and that's just the way Regis was, though. You could throw that guy into any situation, and he would make it work. And that was like his whole kind of self-deprecating and making fun of people and rolling with things. So yeah, he was a natural for it, and he loved it. He would have done every WrestleMania we had if they asked him to. I mean, every time he would be there. I went to a dinner one night where Freddie was receiving some kind of lifetime achievement award. It was in New York City, and Regis came down and presented the award to him.
Wow.
And we went to the dinner and all sat at the table. Joy was there. Remember Joy Philbin, who would fill in all the time? She came too. And Miyako was Freddie's. I got to tell you stories. we have to do an episode just on Freddie. And I've mentioned before how close we became, but I've got some tremendous stories because they would send us out together we were kind of the ambassadors because Freddie lived in Scarsdale and, and I was at the mothership. And so we would do all kinds of stuff. That we'd go to golf tournaments but getting back to,
we're going to write down Freddie right now.
Yeah, we got to do Freddie. Freddie was just, he was classy. So
don't be a pencil neck geek. All right.
That's the first word that comes to mind when you think of Freddie Blassie. But so there was a real strong connection, and Regis was one of those people that he was, up until the time that he really retired, that guy was still, on television, hosting game shows, and he just was, tremendous. And as I said, he a really great guy. And some of these guys, like I said, you would see quite often. When I told you that, like Bob Costas used to come to the Garden all the time, just be backstage. He just would slip in and just hang out.
Well, he didn't hang out here.
Shows every month. So yes, so celebrities. Oh yeah, we will talk about that.
Yeah,
which I felt was kind of like, really, Bob, and that's where I kind of started to lose my
distance.
Yeah, well, I mean, like that we weren't butts or anything like that.
Yeah.
My feeling of, hey, dude, you took advantage and wanted to be there. You're like, you were a mark, basically. And then now suddenly you're highbrow. I mean, really? After, all the opportunities that they gave you and, welcomed you in, and this is what you do. And of course, remember that interview with Vince was kind of the.
Oh my God, dude.
Yeah. So, anyway, there was always the strong connection to celebrities, and of course, being in Tinseltown for this one, it was really. I mean, we had our pick. These guys, a lot of people wanted to be a part of it. Some just basically got cameos, and others they actually got to do some shtick with them, which I think those guys always enjoyed it. I really do.
Regis, he pulls off. I think he's the MVP of celebrities because. Yeah. He's backstage. He's interviewing the Undertaker, and the Undertaker is just measuring him like 34. Yeah. And Paul Bear's writing them down. Oh, okay. Like, and Regis is kind of confused. Like, are they gonna kill me? Are they gonna bury me?
Yeah, they're gonna. Oh, he's a tailor too.
Yep. And then he also interviews like Tenru, and there's a language barrier there, so he just starts dropping down.
That wasn't too easy, right?
He's like, Azuki? Azuki's? Yeah. Oh my God, what are we doing? But again, it's 1991. I guess I'm not going to look at it with today's eyeballs, but Alex Trebek has a few interviews backstage. Again, you're right. He seems like he's trying to break out of his shell, but he doesn't know how. Like, he doesn't know what extreme levels to go up. So he's just going to stay flat, which is fine. Marla really doesn't do much at all with all night long. She's supposed to be a timekeeper in the main event, which is really it. But again, I think she's here for the tabloids at this time because most likely, I don't have the Inquirer from the next day after WrestleMania 7, but I'm guaranteeing she's in it because of her relations at the time with Donald Trump. That's my guess.
Really? Is that what
That's my guess.
It wasn't this incredible talent that they had to get her on there? What?
Nope. I don't think so. Were there any celebrities backstage though that you don't see on camera that because you're in Los Angeles, like you brought up, like there's got to be somebody backstage if you can remember.
Well, no, everybody you saw was who was there. I mean, somebody was going to show up just.
They didn't just let like a comp come backstage and hang out.
Yeah, but I do remember, when these people would come, suddenly they had an entourage of about 20 people.
Always,
and I'm sure that some of these people did have peeps, but this time it was the wife, it was the kids, it was an uncle, it was a brother. It's like they had these. It would be, one guy and then 20 people are coming. And depending on their level of celebrity was how big the crowd was. So I'd tell them like, one person, if they really wanted them there, like I'd say, like if Henry Winkler was going to come up and he said, like, I got like 20 people, I want to bring them, but I'm like,
don't bring my mom.
Okay, all right. Yeah. Mom, but I do remember that. And it's like, where would all these, and they were just, we're with them, we're with him, but they just wanted to be there and they wanted to be backstage. And of course they got some pretty prime seats too for showing up. So it wasn't necessarily they were paying them fees to be there. And I'm sure, you know, if they did do shtick, they got a piece of, you know, got some of that purse money. But just like if you were a celebrity, you wanted to be there, and they would comp tickets because in exchange you're going to let us show you and show how cool it is that you're here and that you're really happy to be here.
Right.
So
well, this little boy's the agent. Is this your son? Yeah, he's my agent. He's got to come. He has to be here.
Yeah, well, it was funny. Like the entourage would certainly grow when they came to those events, because and it just showed you how popular we were at the time. You know that as far as that went with celebrities, business was, but when it came down to people getting a chance to be that close to those guys, everybody showed up.
Yeah, we brought up for a minute though, Bob Costas and Roseanne refused to be here at WrestleMania because of the Gulf War storyline. Listen, like you said, you show up when we're hot and everyone loves us. Once there's a little heat, you're like, oh, I guys gotta go. Oh, I gotta go. Like, what? That happens a lot, I think, with connections like that, where you see something, you're like, well, I don't want my name attached to that because maybe it'll land back on me.
Yeah.
But Roseanne.
Yeah. And thank God we didn't have her there to sing the national anthem. We know how that went.
She's the best. She's the greatest. How dare you?
But and I get it in a lot of ways. You know, you've got people that are managing you and telling you this isn't going to be good, and for us to do this, and so maybe that's had something to do with it. And you know, and you're working for, I don't know if it's the time where she was, but you know, if let's say you're under contract for a show or something like that, and they say, you know, this isn't going to be good, this is not a good reflection on our product, so we're asking you not to do it. So a lot of that stuff, I didn't, if somebody said no, I'm not going to do it, I didn't necessarily think, well, it's because of them, they're being a jerk about it. You got to understand that they've got people handling them and that have some control of their lives and what they do. So they're going to make decisions that way. Bob was different because, for me anyway, because he was really connected to our product in a lot of ways, that he would, he was around all the time. He was a big fan. And then it just kind of, turned. I don't know really when it came down to it. I don't genuinely think it was because his outrage over the storyline. So that one was different for me.
But you're upset about Roseanne more. It's more personal with you and Roseanne.
Yeah, Roseanne, I get it,
All right. Well, the main event of this WrestleMania is Hogan versus Sergeant Slaughter, but original plans was when Tugboat turned on Hulk Hogan, he was not going to be Typhoon and joining up with Earthquake, natural disasters. No, he was going to be Sheik Tugboat, where he was going to be an Iraqi sympathizer, where he was going to be the one who suddenly loved and hated America. Did you ever hear about this before Bruce even brought it up?
Absurd. It doesn't it sounds so absurd. Sheik Tugboat? Where they can put the keep on and
it's his music.
I'm glad that didn't happen. I think that would have been a disaster. And I love me some Fred Ottman, but that one was not. Coming out in the stripes and the sailor hat and then changing that over. That was a tough sell.
Yeah, I don't think that would have worked. We already did. Sergeant Slaughter and Hogan already had poor ticket sales, according to everything. But Sheik Tugboat versus Hogan, might have been worse.
That was a stretch, really.
Yeah, I'm not sure about that. But you had a busy night at WrestleMania 7, though. You interviewed the Rockers, Slick, Warlord, Heart Foundation, Legion of Doom, Sergeant Slaughter, and you're involved with Bobby Heenan and Mr. Perfect.
Wow.
Now, you had a busy day, sir. You had a busy day.
Yes,
you earned your pay. You earned your pay that day. But so we talked before about how some people can get down to the business immediately, one take, done. With this group of people, how long is this taking to do throughout the day? Because what time are you coming to the arena to record all these interviews that are going to air later on?
Well, and some of them were live. I mean, I can't recall exactly which ones, but
Oh,
yeah, but because
one.
we've talked about that before, like when it has to be something that's a post match or
Oh, of course.
there's nothing you can really do about it. You've got to roll with it.
Yes.
But yeah, but we did those backstage tapings and these and all those guys, were really good. Basically one take. I don't remember times when we did these, and at this point, these guys had become well versed. Early on in the career of these people, and let's say they were in territories, and they didn't have the opportunity to do as many, type promos, and especially the kind that we did. But at this point, and these guys were seasoned vets, and this was half your job, was you being able to perform in front of a camera and be able to do a promo. So, we would get right through these things, and everybody felt the pressure because, as I've mentioned before, Vince was there for everything. And if he wasn't physically in the room with you, he was watching in the truck or something like that. He would see everything. So we all knew that when it was go time, we had to nail it. And I don't, I'm sure there were exceptions, but for the most part, everybody nailed it. It was not, to the point where we're going back. And back then, it wasn't the scripted thing. I think it would have been a much more difficult time for everybody if there were words on a page that we all had to hit. We had, a lot of these guys had creative license in the sense that your character, where we're going, hit these bullet points basically, and so it was in many ways, and as you could say, I'd say genuine. They're like that was genuinely coming from that character. That these guys knew those characters so well that they were speaking for that character, and so I that's why I think like back then they were so good. The promos because none of them were ever. If you did 2 takes or 3 takes, they weren't exactly the same. They were going to be different by a few words or a different look or whatever they would do. And so I think that's what made them so good. But we would, it was a tight schedule, and they moved those guys in and out, and they were doing stuff, especially for WrestleMania. There was all other kinds of stuff going on. And they wanted them out there in the ring. They'd rehearse, at least talk about their spot stuff. So when you got them in there, it was like, okay, let's go. I don't remember really even getting a chance to sit down, to have a bottle of water off the side there, but it was one after another. And we might knock them all off in a couple of hours, but it had to get done. And we had crews. They don't have the crews that they have now. So even these camera guys, they were going to be somewhere else. At 4 or whatever it was. And we were out there days before. So we were shooting stuff prior. But we might have to, something might change. Also things would change too. They would go in a different direction, maybe tweaking something like that. So they need the guy we're going to redo that promo. So you just had to be ready whenever they needed you. So, it was really efficient. You roll off that list there. I'm like, man, I don't remember. I guess there was a lot, but those days are kind of a blur in the sense that that's what you did, and you had to be prepped and ready. And I had to know when this guy came in, we'd run through it. And as I have always said, you got to make sure. My job was to make sure whoever was there that I made all the moving parts work. That this guy's talking first, get to the guy in back, then you're back up front. He's going to either go into the camera and they're going to be out, or they just go back to me and I got to say, all right, let's get back to the ring. Let's get back to ringside, gorilla, or. So, yeah, it was a lot going on, but I knew that when it was my time, I had to make sure that I nailed it. I didn't want to be that guy that held it up. And so I made sure that, this is, like you say, you have one job, Mooney. Don't be the bad weed.
I didn't say that.
Yeah, but it's true. I mean, that's the way I actually looked at it. That I respected so much what those guys did. And I'm not saying I looked down on what I did, but I said, like, I'm not the not the focus of this. You know,
Mhm.
I am the one that I'm the mic stand in a sense. I mean, I don't hate to put it that way, but I've got to make sure that everybody gets heard. That was like an art in itself, especially when you had, you know, if it was 4 or 5 guys in one interview. But yeah, that was my job. And when I had to be ready to go, I was.
Is there a line of wrestlers waiting behind each other, or is there a specific time for each one to show up? Because I am in my brain, it's like there's the Rockers, but next to them is the Hart Foundation, but next to them is Slick. Like there's a long ass line. They're all waiting, tapping their toes like Disney lines, or they all have a specific time, a different time of the day.
Well, like anything else, try and schedule things, right? You know, whatever it is. And okay, you know, it's the Tugboat from 2 to 2:10. It's this, you know. And then things get backed up. Somebody comes in, or, you know, somebody gets pulled, they come back. So yeah, there was a backup, and it was funny because, you know, here these guys would be used to performing in front of thousands of people, and doing hundreds of promos. Every TV taping, they're going into the cube. I've told you about that, the soundproof cube. But there was something about, you know, WrestleMania, and as big as it was, and certain occasions that when, let's say, like you said, it got backed up, and then somebody would come in, and some of the guys, it would make them self-conscious that one of the other guys was watching them, and you could see it, like the anxiety of like, I don't want to F up in front of, you know, the Rockers, or I don't want to, you know,
Right.
And it was funny because there were people like that, you know, like Fred would be that way. A little bit, you know, that
Sheik Tugboat.
Yeah, Sheik Tugboat. And initially he had a really tough time, but he got much better. But it was funny to you know, I'm talking about where you're in front of all these things, all this pressure and the ring and everything, and like something as silly as that, you know, where you're in this room and you're in front of the camera, but then some other guy comes in, or they're off camera, and you can just say they're like, it's bothering them that they're there, that it's impacting them. And that would happen to some of the guys. You know, when they were comfortable with who the crew was, they're used to me being around, and they know I wasn't judging them, or you know, and the crew guys were just kind of invisible in a sense, you know, that they were so used to it. But then somebody else would come in, and, you know, like, oh God, that's Undertaker back there, you know, and then it would you could just see that kind of, you know, they get through it, but you knew it would be different. And I felt like sometimes I just wanted to go like, step outside for a couple minutes, you know, just come back in it. But isn't that crazy though? That you would see it like visibly happen. You know, God forbid Hulk came in the room or something, you know, the guys.
Oh my Lord.
Shit, you know, like, but it would get backed up. And then we for the most part, because you would wait outside, you know, because you didn't want. But when in a lot of situations like at the arenas, when we didn't have it, we were in this open area, and they would just put up those, you know, kind of sound boards that, you know, kept, because we just had to do it. So everybody would be standing there. You know, they could sit there and watch, and it was just funny how it would impact some guys. Other guys, didn't matter. They were so used to doing it. Oh. But there were a few that it definitely had an impact on their performance.
Well, the Slick, when you interviewed him, so Warlord is fighting the British Bulldog. So Slick is with Warlord, and I got to give, like, Slick, my God, he used every dog pun, like, dog, it's going to be a dog-eat-dog world out there. Like, bark is worse than your bite. All these, I'm neutering you. Like, there's little things like, God damn, like, this guy is so good at his job. Like you said earlier, some people are just talking. They're not talking as themselves. The character is in their brain, and they know exactly what that character would say when they would say it. So he's brilliant. But you did bring up Vince McMahon for a minute. What is his demeanor like on WrestleMania versus a normal day of work? Obviously, he's always involved, but what is the difference from your perspective of Vince being involved at WrestleMania versus a wrestling challenge taping?
Well, so wrestling challenge taping is at 11. WrestleMania about 13. So yeah, it certainly raised the level. But even though you were very aware of that, the Vince was always like that. That like you never saw him sweat, as they say. So the intensity, yeah, was going to be raised, but Vince was always the way he was always Vince. I mean, he was always just wired and ready to go. And it's really hard to be around a human being like that when he just expects you to be up and ready and thinking and performing 24 hours a day. I always that circle that in between Pat and especially like Bruce, and there were a few others later, like JJ and I felt sorry. I was like, God, those poor bastards. Because how do you say, if Vince got up at 2 a.m. because he decided he wanted to work out, and then he had this, epiphany or whatever of what they're going to do. What wouldn't be unusual for him to tell those guys, come on, get to the house. They were there at the place in Greenwich, hours and hours. And I don't know how they survived, because that is just, and Kevin Dunn too.
Mm-hmm.
He was the Vince whisperer. I mean, if there's one human being on the planet who gets Vince and could be around him for hours and hours and hours, it's Kevin. And that's the special relationship he had with him since he was basically a kid. When he came into the company with because his dad initially started with the production with them, and him and Bruce and Pat, and those guys would be there, talking, doing booking and what they're going to do stuff for just endless hours. And so that's just who Vince is.
Okay.
And I don't think, I haven't been around him in decades, but I knew a lot of people who were, and they said if anything, he got worse. He got more and more intense and more involved. I mean, when I was there, he wasn't walking around with a headset talking live to the color and the play-by-play guys, so that's just the way it was. It wasn't necessarily like, oh crap, it's WrestleMania, he's going to be a maniac. He's Vince, but you knew with the biggest show of the year, everything had to go well.
Yeah, I imagine Vince McMahon is, I'm not gonna say I'm like him, but I have these ideas like 3 a.m. Like, I should call Sean Mooney right now. Wait a minute, what time is it where Sean Mooney is? Oh, yeah. I can't do that. I can't do that to him.
He just got off work. I can't call him now.
He will kill me. But let's get to the event, because one of the biggest things about this is Ultimate Warrior versus the Macho King. Career-ending match. Warrior defeats the Macho Man in one of the greatest WrestleMania matches of all time, not just Golden Era, of all time. Did Macho Man, because there's so many stories about this, did Macho Man actually want to step away from the ring? Or is this we want you to go be work in the office, Savage. We want to use your mind, not your body.
What do you think?
I'm going to say no, but we've heard so many stories from other people on other podcasts about this.
No, even though, maybe in some ways that the idea of getting a break and getting paid is a good thing in professional wrestling. And at that point, Randy's very well paid. And but no, not for 1 second did Randy Savage ever want to step out of the ring, and especially at that point in his career. And as we have discussed before, I don't know what Randy was at that time, how old he was. I think he was 39, somewhere in the, he was a young man still. And here you're considering him some geezer because of you're right. So it's just amazing today. We see what the guys are doing in their 50s, that they're still, doing unbelievable things in the ring. But at that time, and of course, Vince is always thinking, what's next? And the youth movement is underfoot here. No. So the answer to that is Randy wasn't keen on stepping away. And I think even at the time he was thinking like, maybe I'll just go down south and I'll do something there. But figured, okay, I'll give this a shot. And I think he knew they're going to need me. They're going to need me. So if they're going to pay me a lot of money just to go to the broadcast table, okay, and I'll see how that goes. And I think that he also thought, maybe they're going to. I think they told him that you could help with the booking. That he was going to have some influence in that sense. And when that really didn't come to fruition, and he wasn't keen on moving to Stamford or something like that, he's not going to Vince's house at 2 a.m.
I know shit, right?
So overall, he was not happy with that situation at all. But Randy was right; they needed him, and he kind of waited it out. And he was the guy that he was the go-to. And there were many times where he would step in and bring the house down, and remind them how good he was and what an asset he was to the company. But at that time, he wasn't happy with it. But like you just said, I mean, anytime he was in that ring, he was going to give everything he had, and he was going to make that a memorable match. And there was a little extra to it because of the situation. I'm going to show them that, hell, I'm at the top of my game.
He was, because you're right. At SummerSlam 91, he's the main event, but it's his wedding. And Warrior is suspended / fired. And Macho Man is called upon. Hey, we need you. And that pulls off the most amazing storyline ever with Macho Man and James Roberts, which we have talked about on Survivor Series 91 and This Tuesday in Texas podcast. So we have done those deep dives as well. But the match is memorable, but the ending is a tearjerker, because as Savage is on the ground, hurt, Sherri, who was the manager at the time, starts attacking him, kicking him while he's down. Miss Elizabeth apparently has the worst seats ever. She's all the way down in the aisleway. She couldn't get front row. She leaps over, runs in, attacks Sherri. Macho Man's confused. He doesn't know who's been kicking him. He almost punches Liz. He's like, oh, who's hitting me? And he sees it's her. And then, holy shit, my God. I don't know if these are plants or not, but there are people hysterically crying in the audience when Savage and Liz hug for the first time since WrestleMania, a little before WrestleMania 5. It's been about 2 years now since they've hugged. They embrace. He holds the ropes open for her. Oh, Mooney, tell me how you were feeling that day.
Dude, right now, honestly, and I'm not, I feel like that emotion thinking about it because of that relationship, and I knew them, and how it was one of those things that so many people wanted to see happen, and then you see that payoff of it, and everybody felt that way. I remember being backstage, and really it got to me, and so I knew that you talk about a genuine moment. There was so much in that, and to see that happen. And it was the people that you saw it in the crowd, like you just said, that God, finally, we always knew it. They couldn't stay apart. Yeah, they do. They love each other.
Yeah.
And so we all wanted to see that, and that was, to me, that was one of the greatest reunites. Well, this. Them coming back together again was for a lot of people, it was a reality. It was kind of like, people that had known behind the scenes, and I'm talking fans too that know, and to see them come together. And I'll tell you another thing about Liz too. She wasn't anybody that really had to work in the ring. She did some bumps, which some were pretty amazing.
Yeah,
but she really wasn't called upon to, go in and do anything. And so this opportunity with Sherri was, her chance to go out there and mix it up. And she was excited about it. And I remember, Sherri, because I knew Sherri very well. And she told her, like, when you come out, you got to lay it in, and she does. Liz did a pretty damn good job because as we've mentioned before with Sherri, anybody didn't, no matter who it was, didn't go lay it in, put the way you're supposed to do it, like for reals. She would that would be a receipt coming your way, and it was not going to be pleasant because you make her look bad, you make her look weak. And so it was awesome to see. And I think Liz had a great time because, she did it. She laid it in.
Yeah, she like grabs Sherri's hair too as hard as she could, just whips her back. It's a beautiful moment because they let it breathe. Where we have Macho he can't see who's kicking him. So when Liz saves him, he has to look at Sherri on the outside. Sherri's like, "I hate you. I did that." And he looks at Liz like, "Wait, you came to save me? Like, you came to save me?" And looking at the audience like, she did come to save you. And everyone's, what? And do we love each other still? And then they're slowly, and she's crying a little bit too, and they hug. They show this kid in the audience, glasses, and wearing like a raincoat, yellow raincoat on the top. I don't know, what's a hat maybe, crying hysterically. Grown women pouring tears. Again, WrestleMania moments. There's some great matches, and then there's moments. This ending is one of the top moments of all time, I feel like, for WrestleMania. But there's also,
No, I'll just say that, and I say it, and it's, I think about those two, and when I see stuff like that, it really does impact me because I just see how, like it's the tragic, it's what happened, and it's like you see when people are at their peak and everything is awesome and they're and that was them and what they brought to professional wrestling, but like on the personal side and like knowing how that relationship was and to his dying day. And I was glad for Randy that he found happiness later in life before he died. But I still, I believe to his dying day that Liz was the true love of his life. And that was kind of like, it was so genuine. The two of those guys, to get, them together that moment, that it just really captured it. I think a lot of people remember that. And those tears were real for everybody that were in that crowd. So anyway.
No, I'm glad. Thank you for sharing that, because it's true where a lot of people are underneath the impression that, do they actually love each other? Is this a storyline? But when you can see real tears happening in front of you and the audience is affected, even if it was a storyline, it clearly affected thousands of people in the arena and yourself with their personal relationships, what they were doing for us as an audience, seeing their love come back into our lives versus seeing them break up 2 years ago because of Hulk Hogan's and his lust.
Yeah. And also, you have to remember, Steve, that, the company wasn't real big then. In any comparison as it like is today, and it really was in many ways a family, very dysfunctional. I'll say
like a circus.
But remember, like, these people, they lived with each other, and I'm not talking specifically Randy and Liz, but imagine, like, you spend more time of your life with these people than you do with your own blood, your own families. And so the guys that had been there for a long time, really, everybody was connected that way. And I think that, I go to when I've gone to some of these events and I see these superstars see each other again and how they interact with each other. It reminds me of, this like a old, awesome, great friend that you had that you spent some of the best moments of your life with, and you see them, and then you pick right back up. Like, these guys pick right back up where they were, like it was yesterday. Now they see each other more, because of all these different shows. But when you see that, you understand that, these guys were connected way more. It wasn't just business. They spent their lives together. In many ways, as I said, more time than they were with their family. And so, Randy and Liz were part of that family. at the time. And it wasn't like I said, at least with that core of people that were there for a long time and very successful, that was a family.
Mm-hmm. That's true. You're right. Because the company was pretty small then versus now some departments don't even know each other. Yeah. At the time, everyone kind of was in the same boat. Though, yeah, one of the best WrestleMania matches and storylines and ending of all time. Try to argue, and I'll fight you. But let's move on, though. Blindfold match, Jake the Snake Roberts versus Rick the Martel. We don't really see one of these matches ever. It's the first time in the WWF, that is. And then years go on, you'd have a few more. Some people hate this match. Some people love this match. I love the storytelling because of how Martel blinded Jake. So now Jake wants to blind Martel to even the odds in this matchup. That, to me, makes sense. For you, did you enjoy it? Because the crowd interaction makes it watchable if you didn't.
Yeah. And you know, Blindfold match is in the book of storylines, you know, and how it's said. But this was a different version. And we've, you know, Rick the Model Martel being this heel and pulling it off, and how hard he worked to get that gimmick. He wanted to be a heel, and him pulling this off. And what better guy to work it with than Jake the Snake Roberts? You know, I mean, God, you couldn't ask for anything more. So all the way around, man, it all worked for me. The perfume thing, and we talked about when he was injured, and I said that I wish they would have laid it in more with the, you know, kind of like this rushing thing. But yeah, but it worked, you know, and Jake sold it well, you know, like the whole thing. Remember you talked about how when you were a kid and you saw him, we had the contact and with just a white eye, like he's blind. Right? So taking you back.
No, scary. Yeah, Mom.
Yeah. So yeah, that was great.
Yeah, I don't know why some people hate it so much.
Yeah, but I always think it's funny with those ones where they how you know, I think like how did they, you know, the blindfold, okay, it's got like that netting so you see. But you've got to be able to pull that off so that people believe you can't see anything. Right? And that's not an easy thing to do. You know, you're not kind of like doing this, like picking up the thing.
Where is he?
Right? And I thought, you know, it all worked. It all worked.
Same. When you're pointing in the crowd, saying like hot, cold, playing hot, cold with the audience. That's all you're doing, and the crowd loves it.
Yeah, and that was cool. I love that, you know, and it was. And you know, they do these before they get there. They'll go and they'll run a few at houses just to see the reaction they'll get. And I don't think they ever went out there going, okay, what's going to happen is the crowd's going to get into it and they're going to be telling us where to go. I think that organically that happened at one of the houses, and they're like, that's awesome. We get like this crowd involvement, you know? And so they're kind of, and every time they did it, that's what happened. So yeah, I loved it. Same. That was great. Love that crowd interaction.
Yeah. That's what we're here for. I want to see a heavy crowd going crazy. I don't really care if you're watching, you know, some random match and you're not reacting. But when we started off WrestleMania 7, you had Gorilla Monsoon and Bobby Heenan joins on commentary later on. But Hacksaw Jim Duggan comes down dressed as Uncle Sam. Mr. Gimmick himself. I love him so very. This dude is everywhere. And he does commentary for this matchup. And I don't know if Hacksaw is the best guy to have on commentary, but he is the most funniest person to listen to while on commentary.
Yeah. It wasn't necessarily going to be a permanent job, but it was refreshing to see. And he got to use all of his shtick and all of his puns, and yeah, and he was great. You know, I'm a huge fan of Jim. So,
of course.
Yeah. And anytime that he got an opportunity to get out there and, like you said, load him up, he was, you know, Mr. Gimmick, and he was going to find a way to sell it. Yeah. I felt bad for him traveling with all that stuff, but hey, you know, you got to do what you got to do. But Hacksaw, yeah, awesome.
Because, you know, it is superstars in Stripes Forever. So when you have Uncle Sam show up to make sure, you know, we love America here, you know, make sure we understand, you know, we love our Uncle Sam here in America. Yeah. But The tag team titles change hands here. The Nasty Boys pick up the win over the Hart Foundation. This is the end of Bret Hart being in a tag team, and Bret Hart in SummerSlam 91 wins the Intercontinental Championship. And do you think Anvil kind of saw the writing on the wall, or he was oblivious to realizing that Bret was going to break out and be this new star that the WWF was really going to put the rocket on?
Well, yeah, Jim was no dummy. And this doesn't just happen at WrestleMania. So, the groundwork had already been laid, and Bret had been wanting this opportunity for a long time. I think that maybe Jim thought, okay, well, maybe I'm going to be able to have my own little single shot here and show them what I can do. And I think that, no matter who you are in a tag team, at some point, you want to see, can I carry this on my own? Can I be a force? And you want that chance to have the light just shining on you. So, yeah, I think he knew that it was coming, and absolutely knew that Bret was going to be getting the share of this chance. But you're still with the WWF, and you're still a superstar. He would mess that up a bit, not shortly after that. But I think at the time it was business. So I don't think he wanted to hold Bret back. I don't think there was like, dude, really, you're going to do this? You're going to leave? I don't think that was the case at all, because you took the opportunities when you can, and they've been together a long time.
Yeah.
And not just prior, before this, they had familiar connections here, right? So this is not something just because when they went to the WWF that they're suddenly put together. This was all Jim got the opportunity because of Bret. So he couldn't really disparage him for that. And so while he probably wasn't thrilled that this was happening, because it was a damn good ride as the Hart Foundation, he knew that this was going to happen. So, make the best of it and hope that you get to ride that trail too, that blazing trail that Bret was going to launch on.
Now, earlier in the night, the Rockers defeated the Barbarian Haku. Now, this would be Marty Jannetty's final WrestleMania appearance. And again, Jim the Anvil Neidhart, this is his final appearance. It's very interesting to see, because you flash forward a year later, WrestleMania 8, you get Bret Hart fighting Roddy Piper, IC Championship match. You have Shawn Michaels as a single star, kicking off the night against El Matador, Tito Santana. So it's just weird to see the end of the Anvil and Marty Jannetty at WrestleMania on these high-profile matches.
Yeah.
Because once their tag teams break up, one goes up, one goes down on each side.
And really, that really just it was fate in a sense. I mean, it wasn't by any means planned that, okay, that's going to be their last shining moment, and then wah,
Right.
But things happened. Jim, I think, was suspended shortly after that. And then Marty had his issues. So those were kind of self-inflicted wounds. I mean, I don't think that, they were going to push them out of the company right after that. They had use for both of them. Marty was very good, as we've talked about before. I thought he was, initially, I thought he was the best half of that tag team. And so he could have probably done very well in singles competition if they found the right place for him. And Jim, maybe they would have hooked him up with another tag team, because he was good with that. That was kind of where he shined. But you live your own life, and you make the mistakes along the road, and they pay for it.
True.
Big time.
Well, Marty Jannetty gets like 1,000 more chances, even forms a tag team called the New Rockers with Al Snow, who was Leif Cassidy at the time. Jim Anvil gets a second opportunity with Owen Hart as the new foundation, returning in 94 to help Owen Hart fight Bret Hart. So it was great to see Anvil keep coming back here and there, and Marty also keep coming back here and there. This WrestleMania also has the birth of the Undertaker streak. Undertaker defeats Superfly Jimmy Snuka. No one knows what the streak is yet. it's just very interesting to see that Taker wins against Superfly here. Fly forward to Survivor Series 91. He's fighting Hulk Hogan for the world title. At this point, for you personally, are you looking at Taker as someone like, damn, like this guy isn't just good, he's great?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and you see about his ascension. My God, it was spectacular to see. And I've talked with other people too about that character at the time, because I was trying to remember, talking to Chris Chambers, because he was, an integral part of all that too, behind the scenes. That that character could have been just so, like almost a one-off. I mean, if somebody didn't know what to do with it, it was kind of it's like a dead guy. Like, okay, what are you gonna do with it, right?
Yeah.
And it's like the second he came out with that, everything worked. The outfit that he had on, the demeanor, like he just grabbed the presence of, the minute he came in, he just captivated everybody there. So after seeing him after a short period of time, and he just kept, I always tell people, like, they're hitting singles. Well, he was hitting, triples and home runs every time, he came out. It wasn't just, he was just solid. You just see him every time that his confidence was growing and his presence was going, and he didn't even have to say anything. And he just being aware of the camera, and when he would make that turn, and the things that he could do with his eyes. And so it's amazing. I don't know too many others that you can talk about that had that kind of a rise in the company, in the profession. Then, Mark, what was he, mid-20s at that point? Even, I don't even know if he was mid-20s at that point, because I think he came in, he was 22 or 23. So to see where he went in that short period of time and never looked back. So yeah, just tremendous. And everybody was aware of it. There was nobody discounting, like, he's a fluke. It was rock solid.
Yeah, he had an incredible year. And one of the storylines that I thought was so excited to see the end of at this event was Virgil defeating $1 Million Man Ted DiBiase by countout. They broke up at Royal Rumble 91, but for the past couple of years, since 88, they've been a package deal. Virgil always helping $1 Million Man out, but now they're showing highlights of Virgil doesn't like to massage the $1 Million Man's bunions, and he doesn't like to do these types of mean things anymore. So finally, we're getting Virgil. Well, he's getting paid to do these things too. I always wondered about that. Like, well, you're getting paid to do these mean things. Like, are you not an employee of the $1 Million Man? But either way, he finally breaks off. They fight here. Piper is in the corner of Virgil, and throughout the vignettes, Piper's fine. He's doing great. Shows up on crutches here. Apparently had a bad accident in a vehicle, so he's hurt. Virgil wins. Sherri ends up coming down to help $1 Million Man, and they get together. So now Sherri and Macho Man are over. Teddy Bear begins with Sherri. What'd you think of the end of the storyline? Because I love the Virgil $1 Million Man package, but once it's over, $1 Million Man and Virgil both slowly go down the ranks.
Yeah. I mean, that whole gimmick was perfect, in a sense that, Virgil was perfect for that role. The look he had, the way that Ted treated him, and he took it even from the beginning. Virgil would always acquiesce. He'd always do whatever it was, but there was always kind of that, okay, I've got to remember what my place is here, and I am getting paid, and he's paying me a lot of money, and it's, I'm going to grit my teeth, and I'm going to do it. And so even from the very beginning, and I'm sure that's what Vince told him, that you've always got to have the slow burn back there. Like, you're doing it, but you're not, it's like, yeah, sure. What do you want me to do? Okay. Yeah. There's always got to be that little resentment of where I am, my role in life. But at the same time, there's a price, and it's a good price for me. So when we're weighing what I got to do to, okay, got the scratch, that was that whole character, and it worked, and it was all, and in many ways, like, and Ted, his part of it was he was kind of oblivious to the fact that this guy might not be thrilled at what you're asking him to do. Like Ted always kind of had that kind of, he was oblivious to, like, what he's not happy. Look at him, I pay him handsomely. Yeah. And they would never that second look, like, you eyeballing me, kind of that.
No, never.
And so, that worked, like you said, years. That run was great, but I think that we all knew, right, at some point, he's not going to be able to take it anymore. At some point, it's going to break him. At some point, he's going to snap. And God, I hope he gives it to him. I just hope, like, all of that all built up, that you've just treated me like filth and dirt, and you're your slave, and that I'm going to do anything you want me to do, and he's going to take care of it, and that's what we're all waiting for. So that was that whole gimmick.
I loved it.
And
I loved it. I loved their
really
entire
did.
storyline. It's like in my brain, I'm not going to compare them, but they're in my brain. They remind me of Paul Bear and Taker were together for so long. When Paul Bear eventually turned on Taker, it was this big moment. And same thing here with Virgil in the $1 Million Man. But the World Championship match, obviously, Hulk Hogan wins the belt against Sergeant Slaughter in the main event. Hogan bleeds, and after the match, if you're watching, I think on Coliseum video, that Hogan and Mean Gene are walking backstage to go into Hogan's locker room to have some champagne to celebrate. Sergeant Slaughter is waiting there with a fireball and throws a fireball in Hulk Hogan's face. So it's WrestleMania. Hogan must pose. Hogan must fireball as well. Though, how was the demeanor thinking, all right, we're going back to Hogan? Like, was there maybe an idea of maybe we should try something else? We tried Warrior. We had Macho Man. We got going back to Hogan. Like, maybe we should try something different this time?
Well, yeah. So where were they going to go?
That's the problem. Like, where?
Yeah, that's the problem there too. If whoever's thinking, God, we need somebody new, we need something else here. Well, they're thinking, okay, what you got?
Right.
And the Hulkster, yeah, and the Hulkster was the best thing that they had, and Terry knew it. Like Terry always, you talk about like Randy knowing they're gonna need me. How many times did Hulk Hogan think that and be absolutely right?
Every time. Every time.
Right. So sure. Would we love to have? Would people have liked to have seen maybe the Ultimate Warrior be completely different and get the business and like doing it and just be the answer, which could have been possible, but he just didn't. And the Hulkster answered every time and kept him floating, kept it going, for better or worse, whatever they thought. But there was no other better alternative. So those who may have been doubters at the time are thinking like, oh my God, here we go again. Well, what else we got here? And we're struggling and things aren't good, and we've got to go with the Hulkster.
No, again, I understand from a business standpoint why you did this, because you just said all the good points. Well, this guy's selling the most merch. This guy is the most noticeable character we have. Let's put him back on all the posters. Let's make sure we keep promoting this guy because he's the most recognizable athlete we have in our company.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a good way to do it. Even if you don't see the downfall a little bit without having to build other people, it still works out for Hogan. And they continue the Sergeant Slaughter Hogan storyline into SummerSlam 91 as well. And that does not end well for Ultimate Warrior, which we've done a whole podcast about.
Yeah.
Now, we're kind of getting to the end of this podcast, but let me point out something to you. We did a WrestleMania 5 podcast about this. There's 14 matches on this card.
I know. 14
matches. Now, I'm going to plow through the other ones, and I want you to kind of tell me, do you think they should have been on the card? Did it needed to be on the card? So,
well, I'll say, and even before you list it off, I will say that this lineup to me was better than
5.
Yeah, when they had
1 million times better.
Yeah. So, yeah, a lot of matches, but better matchups.
Agreed. I do agree.
Okay.
I think it's because the quality of the talent and the quality of the character for WrestleMania 7 has better characters and gimmicks than 5. 5 is still a little in the smoke-filled arenas. We're still like just grizzled men wearing red tights. Like here we got
a lot of
Warlord.
and a lot of eyebrows raised over some of the, like, really that long? Really? Why? Yeah. So go ahead.
So we have the second match, Texas Tornado versus Dino Bravo. Why? For the
why? But not bad as far as Terry's.
They're both great.
They're trying to Terry. They're trying to put over, and Dino. Dino could get it done out there. I like Dino, and he was, his the whole thing with a pound on the chest and the, so that to me that was a good matchup. Okay.
What's weird about him too is he was the world's strongest man, and then out of nowhere they're like, well, we can't have you be the world's strongest man. Hogan's pretty strong too. You're the strongest man in Canada. All right. Yeah, you can be the strongest man in Canada, not the world. British Bulldog
couldn't stop bullets.
Jeez Louise,
that
man.
was a bad shot. I love Dino. I'm sorry.
A bad shot again. British Bulldog defeated the Warlord. These two wrestled 5 times in 1991. There are 5 pay-per-views in 91. They fight on all of them if you're counting the Royal Rumble 30-man match. Why? I love Warlord. I love Bulldog. Can't you figure out another combo of matches?
Well, no, I guess at the time, no. And they, that's another, like Warlord, Vince, he was, as far as how he was put together, it was just kind of the perfect Vince character. But he just, being like he was, he just couldn't move like, that it just couldn't be helped. I mean, he couldn't do a lot of things just because he was so huge. It's just, like
giant.
How much more can you blow him up? It was, and restricted his ability to do a lot. So I never really enjoyed those matches with him because of that. It just, he was just too much. But as far as what, Vince was going to sculpt his perfect, guy he wants to see in the ring, the Warlord was all over it. Yeah, that was.
I remember the story of Mr. Perfect. Hey, can you help me here? And the needle bounces off. Like, I think you're full.
All full. Thanks, full.
I think you're full.
And Bulldogs. I think he's at his peak there too. I mean, he's
looking big.
Looks great. But I just think it kind of restricted what you could do in there. So it was kind of a lumbering match, So, but like I said, better matchups than what we saw in 5.
Oh, a million times better. Like I'd rather watch 7 any day of the week than have to watch 5. And someone might be saying, "How dare you?" And I'm like, "Well, I'm sorry." Tenryu and Tao defeat Demolition. This is Demolition's final match as a team. This is the end of Demolition. We did a whole podcast on Demolition, an hour and a half. Check it out. But boy, it's so sad to see that this is the end where they're losing to international talents that are clearly trying to create a business relationship with the WWE, but you sacrifice the team that was so good and you just allow them to fizzle out like this. What are your thoughts on the final match of Demolition?
Well, I think that there was, and I don't remember the timeline of like the Road Warriors or Legion of Doom coming in, and
summer of 1990 is when LOD comes in.
Yes, but I think that there was kind of this feeling that there wasn't room for both. I don't know, but that didn't make any sense to me because I thought they were very distinctly different tag teams, and what better way than to keep them crossing paths. So it didn't make a whole lot of sense to me. There was some stuff going on behind the scenes there, but I think that even though they would be involved in the company, Barry especially, I don't think they really got over that part of it because I think they both realized what a good duo they were, and so I didn't get it. I still don't because they were tremendous. I put them absolutely in the top 5 tag teams all time.
Same. We did a poll on the Primetime with Sean Mooney YouTube channel asking who the top tag teams of all time during the golden era, and we put up some options, and Demolition won clear as day because of just their dominance throughout the golden era of wrestling.
Yeah.
Legion of Doom, though, defeated Power and Glory in 59 seconds. Paul Roma and Hercules were both injured at the time, so that's why this match goes very quickly, so they could just get them on the card and get them off the card. Earthquake defeated Greg the Hammer Valentine in 3 minutes and 14 seconds.
That's good. I'm glad it was 3 minutes and 14 seconds. Yeah. Would have been interminable if it was 5 minutes and 14 seconds.
Or if it was 3 minutes and 15 seconds, Jeez Louise, man. I love all these characters. Don't send hate. I love all these characters. The Mountie defeated Tito Santana in 1 minute and 21 seconds.
Yeah.
And then the last match really that we didn't talk about so far, Intercontinental title, Mr. Perfect versus the Big Boss Man. During an interview with Mr. Perfect, Bobby Heenan brings up Rodney King and the whole police beat down of him.
Yeah,
I remember
and
that. And you're standing there and you're
Bobby,
like, okay, you're fighting a police officer character.
Could you see how uncomfortable I was? I don't know if it showed through because I was pretty good stone face, but I remember just going like, Jesus. Okay. All right. You didn't just say that, really? Because even then, I was like, what? That's one of like, why? I understand the topical and all this stuff, but yeah.
It was only a few days before this too, which is crazy. It's not like it happened like 3 months ago. This happened like 3 days ago before WrestleMania, and then here he is dropping his lines.
Too soon. Yeah, too soon. And maybe it was always going to be too soon, but it was too soon.
Like you have an Iraqi sympathizer storyline. You have Desert Storm. You have Rodney King. And there's Bob Costas pulling out. Like there's a lot of Even Sergeant Slaughter said Willie Nelson didn't want to be his friend anymore because he sang the opening of this WrestleMania as well. And he's so skinny. Willie Nelson, by the way, he's so skinny. He's wearing a child foam wrestling belt around his waist. That's how skinny Willie Nelson was singing at the beginning of this WrestleMania. So, but all in all, we did a whole podcast of Mr. Perfect and Big Boss Man when we took a deep dive into both of their careers in this matchup. So Big Boss Man defeats Perfect by DQ, doesn't win the Intercontinental title, but at least Big Boss Man's mother is now vindicated because the Heenan family has been making fun of her for about 6 months now. Those assholes, those dirty, dirty assholes. But
low.
How dare you? How dare you? Yeah. We have Mothers Insult, Rodney King, Desert Storm, too much. But I got to say, WrestleMania 7, when I thought about rewatching it and going back, I thought, oh boy. And then after watching it, I go, damn, this is good. Like all the matches are good. Even the ones I mentioned in like saying, oh, why is this here? Well, it's here because they're all good wrestlers and all good characters. Yeah. So what were your thoughts before we wrap this up on WrestleMania 7?
I say overall, I think it was a really good show. A lot of controversy. It'll be argued forever about what went on, what was happening in the world at the time. But nonetheless, it was memorable for lots and lots of reasons. And I thought, considering, man, what it took to get there for that event, and moving the venue and everything else like that, it was a hell of a WrestleMania, and it's up there. I think it was one of the best at the time, and So overall, and like I said, a lot of matches, but I didn't have a real big problem with that because I felt, like you just said, the guys that stepped into the ring that day were definitely had earned their right to be there. And so, yes, overall, thumbs up.
Good. And then before we wrap this up, we have recently asked on the Primetime with Sean Mooney Instagram at Real Sean Mooney. That's where you can follow us there for all stories and little shorts and more fun little memories with Sean Mooney. I asked this morning, you got any questions for Sean Mooney? And we're about to wrap up. So we're going to throw in 3 right now from Edgar.
Did you check with my agent on this? Did you?
I believe I am actually your agent. So I did check with myself, and I have said, yes, we can do this. These are easy. Don't worry.
All right.
We're going to do some heavy math here. Edgar, Dad, JNR, was it supposed to be Savage versus Warrior for the title? Instead, having Hogan fight Sheik Tugboat.
Well,
Interesting.
there were certainly discussions about that, and would that have been horrible? Considering it's going to be Tugboat versus Sheik Tugboat? Nah. So I would have gone with that one.
Okay.
Yeah, but it didn't happen. Yeah, but there was, absolutely. There was a discussion about that. So sure, yeah. And
I imagine Savage versus Warrior for the title instead of wow, that'd be interesting instead of career championship on the line. I love that question. From Reedster 2025, is it true the slow ticket sales were the reason the venue is moved? Now we kind of discussed that earlier, but in your personal opinion, like your real opinion, was it ticket sales or was it safety?
Oh, I think it was more ticket sales. Yeah, if they would have, let's say that first week they sold 50,000 tickets, they would have figured out a way to secure that place. Say if you're going to sell 100, we're going to sell this place out. You're going to figure out a way to do it. But as I did mention, security was a big concern. It was. They didn't. All it would take is one crazy to make it disastrous. So that was a big concern. But I think the overall factor in this is the panic of after 2 weeks, you got 10,000 seats sold, legit. You got problems. So there you go.
And then Hearts by Spirit Dreams 1 asked the same exact question. So they just wanted to know about the ticket sales. But thank you for your question as well. And we'll be doing this more often, allowing you to be part of the Golden Era with Sean Mooney podcast, because we have so many in the can already. So some of these won't have questions on them, but don't you worry, folks. We'll get you in. Remember, at Real Sean Mooney. It's the Prime Time with Sean Mooney Network. Instagram account, it's alive and well. Facebook's alive. TikTok's alive. We are here for you. And thanks again for listening to us talk about this amazing event. I'm Seafall. He's Sean Mooney. Have a wonderful day, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
It's the golden age of WWE.